Welcome to Chronicles of Old Singapore. This is Dr Loh KS, the people's historian, and I speak to people about their memories of Singapore before it became a global city. Do like the video and subscribe for future episodes. This will help the channel a lot. Very happy to have with us for the third time, to finish his life story. You can hear him laughing in the background. Is James Kwok. James, morning, how are you?
Good morning.
Yeah, your laughter
Feeling
is
better?
as hearty as ever. So for listeners who may not have watched the other episodes, right? We started with James at Towner Road, where he grew up, and all the interesting things he remembered seeing at Towner Road, including some of our political history. And then we had a follow-up episode when James went to study, right, at Victoria School. Subsequently, his first job was to teach at Kwok Avenue School, where I think he was a very successful teacher. How many years were you at Kwok Avenue again?
1966 to 1972.
Yeah, that is not a short time, right? So do you think you would have stayed on if nothing had happened in education?
Yes, I would have stayed on because I was building a winning team. In 1972, the year that I left, we got a school to become champions in basketball, the B division boys, and our volleyball team was national third, 1972. So I was determined. I said maybe one more year, the next year will be the champion, Singapore champion in volleyball, besides basketball.
Yeah.
And then something happened.
You were a PE teacher, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I think we talk about this. So anyone who wants to watch the episode, go ahead. But I think there is something quite unique about your character, right? You are able to relate to people well, and you are able to, even though these were kids, there wasn't much of a generation gap at the time, right? You were
No.
a bit older than them, of course, right?
Yeah.
You got along well with your boys and girls.
Boys usually, because one of the crazy things I say, very, very crazy things I did, was to pack about 6 or 7 boys into my car on weekends
Yes.
and drive to National Library or drive to Van Cleef Aquarium or even as far as Seletar Reservoir. I think back, if an accident happened along the way, somebody got hurt, oh dear, I don't know what's going to happen. But for me, I just say thank God that nothing happened. And these boys still have fond memories of this crazy teacher.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what happened, all right? Why didn't James continue in teaching, and how he joined the private sector. And this is, I think, quite something that we haven't discussed enough, right, in our history, especially the generation that was working in Singapore in the 60s and 70s when we were developing into a nation, right? Work consumed so much of our time and our energies. This is also when we had two working families, two breadwinners in the family, opposed to one. So often the spouse also worked. And I want to talk about what work meant to the older generation of Singaporeans, because work has become a bit more problematic these days, right? Work has become less secure. Work has become more difficult to continue. The idea of lifelong working is being challenged now. And also, work is becoming much longer for a lot of Singaporeans. Our retirement age keeps getting pushed back. So James' experience is very interesting in a way, that he was telling me he was working for 5 multinationals in Singapore. So he never worked for any other organization or company, but his employer were always the multinationals that invested in Singapore. But I think it's very important that multinationals, we talk about the multinationals that came to Singapore in those days, beginning from the 70s, and then of course later on they changed as we changed our industrialization program. Right, what did we learn from the multinationals? Who were the folks who came to the foreign managers who came to Singapore, and what did we learn from them? So James, you were telling me 1 British, 2 US, 1 Australian, 1 US finally, multinational, 30 years of working, of your working life. Tell us what these multinationals were.
You see, the thing is, I was hired being from a non-technical background, but because I could talk, as you said, I can relate to people. I was hired into sales and marketing positions. And these were multinationals, and they didn't invest in Singapore, but they used Singapore as a kind of a staging place to launch into surrounding areas. So my experience with them was, I was not the highest rank, not among the high ranks, their middle management. So they being multinationals, the bosses are always non-Singaporeans. And I got to learn how to adapt to them. And life was, I also learned there was no such thing as security. Because the boss who hired me, he could be out in 2 or 3 years, either promoted or sacked. And a new boss comes in, I will have to adapt to him. I could be doing very well, I could be fulfilling all my targets, but if he has in mind a good friend to take over my job, so how hard I perform, it won't matter. For example, you can just see, I'm already reaching my market potential, say maybe 3 million a year. And maybe the market is good enough, the total market, but then I have competitors. I'm not in a monopoly. And a new boss comes and says, James, I think you should be making 6 million a year. So when he says that, my days are numbered. So I got to look for a job. So that's the situation with sales and marketing in those days. But the pay is much better than factory job. Yeah. But they hire and fire. And I must always be on the lookout for a new job, even as I begin settled on this job.
I just want to ask a quick question. I mean, that is very interesting. What was your qualification? What did you study? What's your background?
So my background was because of my being a teacher. Mine was in principles of education, anything that has to do with teaching. But besides that, because I was a sports teacher, I also learned sports psychology and dealing with people and how to read faces. And when I see my boss coming in with a kind of liquid look in his face, then I know what to expect. So reading faces was what got me to survive. And also because because I get along well with people, I make alliances along the way among competitors. And in those days, they were headhunters. They call it executive search companies. And being in executive search, they will call upon people, and I get into more details later. But then that's how I survive. Make friends with people, don't offend, don't make enemies out of my competitors.
Right.
And also try to be as friendly as possible to my customers. Because the first company I was working with is a British company under the Inchcape group. Inch, I-N-C-H, and Cape, C-A-P-E. Big company. And the biggest company under the umbrella is the Borneo company. And I was working in one of the subdivisions of the Borneo company. And all throughout my 30 years in sales and marketing, I was selling only medical equipment. But different kinds of medical equipment. Different kinds of medical equipment, but basically I call upon the same institutions, the same customers. And I get my customers to recommend me to new people. So perhaps I'm selling this kind of equipment now, but in a couple of months' time, I'm selling that kind of equipment. I go back to these people say, hey, by the way, I'm now doing this. Can you recommend me people to see? So helping, but first I serve them well. Make sure that when I call on them, I don't waste their time. Value added. Each time they see me, they feel that I'm adding value to our 15, 20 minutes meeting. So that's how I survive. And because the first company I worked with, I had a very good managing director. He passed away in 1993. His name is Ronald Walter Fairlamb. Fair, F-A-I-R, L-A-M-B. A very kindly gentleman who was also a director of companies like Metro, I think Robinsons also, big companies. I think CK Tang also. And as he was leaving for his retirement, he did tell me, reminded me actually, because at my first interview, he told me, James, you must remember, your bosses are your customers, not here. So I took that to mind. And as he was leaving, he gave me a very good pep talk. James, remember what I told you? I said, yes, Mr. Fairlamb. You told me that my customers are my bosses. Good. Serve them, cultivate them, help them, and they'll help you. So that remained a guiding principle. So for mentors like this along the way, although I got a lot of disappointments, but recalling how these mentors helped me. And then because of what I've been told, and because of how I serve my customers, some of my customers, they became my mentors also. So this is very important. So my advice to my children and grandchildren is make friends. But if along the way you find some people are not worth, don't cut them off and don't make enemies out of them. Maybe some days the rivers might meet again.
Don't burn your bridge, right?
Don't. Yeah.
This
So
Ronald Fallon was British.
British. Yeah. And after he retired, I went to his house. It was a beautiful cottage in an area just south of London called Walton, Walton, Walton on Thames, the River Thames. And mentioned the name among the British businessmen, and they say, wow, there's a stockbroker's belt. Because from there, they will drive to the nearest train station. From there, take a train into London. So he lives in the stockbroker's belt. So from there, you can see, you can gauge how wealthy he was.
You mentioned those were Chinese companies, right, where he was on the board of directors, right? Metro and Tangs.
Yeah, but I think maybe because of his connections with British suppliers, he has got, before he came to Singapore, he was a businessman in England. When he joined this board of directors, and they know him personally, so he was able to bring expertise or connections into these companies. So I think the connections are important.
And also that, those companies, although they were Chinese, trusted him enough to want to get him onto the board, right?
Yeah, they trusted him. And he was also, along the way, he acquired, he also was actively serving in the British military, and he was a lieutenant colonel with territorial declarations. And so his card will say, Lieutenant Colonel, TD, territorial decorations. And when he was in Singapore, when he first came, he was also in the volunteer corps. He came before the war. And just before the war, he was able to get out, and then he came back again.
So during that time, he was about 50s?
Yes. In 1972, I think must be about 54. Because the next year, he took retirement, 55.
Okay. Yeah. Not long.
Yeah.
Whereabouts did he stay in Singapore?
He stayed in this place off Bukit Timah, Gallop Road. Yeah. So the area, Bukit Timah area, Gallop Road, I think the place called Camden Drive.
Yeah.
Camden. Yeah. So all these arranged for him.
Yes, of course. As an expat, yeah, he had all the benefits.
Then he also got a driver. He also got a Toyota Super Crown, because all the big bosses will be given drivers, plus Toyota Super Crown. Top of the range in those days before Lexus came out.
I mean, it is so important to have a good mentor, right? Even in the past as well as it is today.
Yes. And the mentors can come in different ages. Later on, when I went into my study of psychology, we're talking about mentoring. Ideally, each of us should have 3 mentors. Somebody who's older than I am, somebody in the same age group, and somebody in the lower age group. Because they come with different experiences, and they can see things in a different perspective, which I can't see. So, and then for me, another very important thing in my life, which I remember, is a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson, he was a philosopher, scholar, thinker, author of maybe 200 years ago, and he was one of the original scholars at Harvard. And he said, he's supposed to be a very high IQ, and he's a very wise man. And he said something, in all my walks, every person I encounter, in all my walks, means my walks in life, every person I encounter is superior to me in some ways. So don't look down on people. Every person I encounter is superior to me in some ways. So I took that at heart, and in the hospital or in the clinic, when I sell to the doctors in the hospital too, when I sell to the chief nurse, I don't neglect the junior nurses. I always have a kind word for them. They are important. So I just like to make complimentary remarks. Not that I'm out to praise for just for the sake of praising. So like Nurses Day, for example, make sure that they get a card from me. At least I remember. So once when I was in a management position, picking up some juniors and also taking up technicians to do some maintenance work, the technician said when they come back to the office, they say, this James, everybody in the hospital he knows, from the top to the to the very junior. Yeah, because these become my friends, and they know I'm sincere about it. Not that I'm a people user. No, I don't. I know the meaning of that. So mentors along the way, very important. And every person I meet is superior to me in some way. So now I can say to my grandson, now in primary 6, 3 years ago, he was in primary 3. I told him this. I said, Jordan, you are superior to me in some way. Kong Kong, how can that be? I said, in some way. I didn't say in every way. I said, because you play the piano, which I can't. So at piano playing, at reading music notes, you are superior. But when it comes to lesson, I am superior to you. That's why I can help you. So this is the attitude in my whole life.
Yeah, right from the beginning, right? Can I ask you then, maybe this business of selling medical equipment, right? There are sort of like more or less fixed factors, right? There are the prices, there's the demand, there things that are outside your control. So as a salesperson, when you go in and meet the customer or the prospective customer, what is your role, in the sales discussion? What is your role? What differentiates a good and a average salesperson?
Before I see the customer, I must do a research about him. This is where his juniors and his technicians are important. What kind of a guy is he? Does he like to talk? Is he only after low pricing?
Yes.
Buy only when cheap? Or is he after quality? So these are things I might have in mind. I see him passing by. I know who he is. I read about him. But it's from the technicians working with him and from the nurses in his ward or in his operating theater that I know what kind of person he is. My job is to sell, and I must make sure that I don't waste his time. And when I sell, it's not just selling to the doctors or the surgeons. I also sell to the nurses helping him. So, for example, there's a company called Smith and Nephew. They are still around today. In those days, they are doing adhesive plasters, those little adhesive plasters on the hand. And it comes in little metal boxes, red color boxes, tiny little ones, just slightly bigger than a matchbox. So when you mention the name Elastoplast, people of my generation will know, those adhesive plasters, yeah. So our company has door gifts, all these little boxes, boxes of Elastoplast to the nurses, to the doctors, for them to use. And they keep the boxes. Occasionally, I get the refills. Door open for me. This is the Elastoplast man.
Elastoplast man.
Yeah, Elastoplast man. And what they also do is they introduce a kind of just imagine a big piece of plastic adhesive on one side. And if they want to operate on my hand, they put this adhesive piece of plastic on my hand and smoothen it. And then when they operate, they just operate through this piece of plastic. It's called opsite, O-P-S-I-T-E, opsite drapes. And after the surgery, they just stitch up with the opsite in place. And then after a few days, the opsites will just peel off by itself. And the idea is having this opsite is, although they sterilize the skin as much as possible before the surgery, during the operation, the germs, especially the pathogenic germs, from the surrounding area can come in. But by having this layer in place, they keep the germs in while allowing the skin to breathe. So I got to introduce this to the nurses. In those days, we don't have laptops like now. You don't even have a video. What we had was small little cinema tapes, like you see in the cinema reels. And I carry around the little the portable projector in the car. And I bring the tapes with the projector into the nurse's tea room. And under my arm, there'll be a box of biscuits. So put there, biscuits, I supply. Drinks, they supply. And then I just get permission and keep on rolling the movie camera. And then when the doctor finishing operation or taking a break, come in to take a drink, what is this? I say, our new product. Oh, okay. I say, afterwards, come and see. I wait here for you. Yeah. So that's how we make friends. And see, the importance of having mentors was a very senior nurse. I think she was the chief among the purchase, the one with the power to recommend purchases. I think she's since passed on. I was her internet, so to speak, because there's so much to remember. Which guy sells what, which company sells what. Although there's a book called the BIMS, Drug Index of Malaysia and Singapore. So you can see, but mainly medicine, but only towards the end, at the appendix. Then you see maybe 30 pages of equipment suppliers. Briefly, the name of the company, the name of the manufacturer, and the name of the local distributors. But because I make a mental note of all the back pages, and then when I go down there, this matron will say, "Hey James, who sells this?" Then I say, "Oh, I know. I even got the name and address and the phone number. Can give me." So those days, no internet. You cannot just type in Google and then get it.
Yeah.
So I became the internet for them. Now there I know. And then they say, "Oh, these offsites, this surgeon so and so will be interested." I say, "Okay." And then I say, "Is he operating today?" "Oh no, today no operation. So he won't be coming in." "Okay." Then he can go to the clinic. But the clinic, he ends at 5, 6 o'clock. Wait outside. Yeah. So talk about long hours. Sometimes they got long cases until 7 o'clock. We sit outside and wait together with other drug salespeople.
Oh,
They
really?
say they exchange cards. So they are seeing him to sell something. So we exchange cards. Hello. So that's where I get to know my competitors, whom I make into friends. So having a wide range of people to help in a way is good. So maybe when I get the chance to see the surgeon, I was because I don't sell drugs, so I see the surgeon. Maybe I only got 5 minutes go with him. So I just show him a sample. I say, Doctor, I got this. You free? Come down to the operating theater, the tea room. I meet you there. And then they say, okay lah. Wednesday lah. I got what time operation? You go there and wait for me. So that's how then I get ready, all my sample and all that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of initiative needed. You have a lot of flexibility to go about doing your sales, right?
Yes. Yeah. And interestingly, the first job that I got involved in, Smith and Nephew, I was hired as what they call a detail man. My job is to just give details to the buyers and potential customers, the surgeons and the nurses. I didn't have a sales target, but every quarter or so, the company, Smith and Nephew, England, will send somebody down, the area manager, and then he accompany me into the market, maybe just to see how well I relate to the customers and potential customers, and also maybe test me also how much I know about the latest product. After the first day, get back into the office where we meet the managing director of the Singapore agent, Mr. Phelan, and they have a meeting, the company representatives, the manufacturer's representative, and my managing director. After the meeting, when they come back, when this representative come back and say, "Hey James, where shall we go for dinner tonight?" Then I know, in fact, he must have said something nice to Mr. Phelan. So for example, this first guy whom I met from Smith and Nephew was a guy with a very peculiar name. His name is Frederick, and his surname is Stone.
Yeah.
Stone. So I didn't know how to address him. I just called him Mr. Stone. But at the end of the day, when we were getting ready for dinner, he said, "James, just call me Fred." That means okay, yeah. Okay, Fred. And then he told me, I got a funny name. I say, why do you say it's funny? People think that I'm Fred Flintstone. Flintstone. And then during our conversation, I tried to find out more from him during dinner about the product. But first, I got to get his permission. I say, Fred, if over dinner we talk about business, is it okay? Talk about products? Okay, James, good, go ahead. I like that kind of attitude. But there's some people, dinner means dinner, don't talk about business. Okay, let me talk about business. And I try to find out. And for example, one big concern about this op site during the operation when the patient sweats, here is easy, but if it's hip joint, bigger area, and I know it involves a lot of sawing and cutting and crowbar and all that. Actually, orthopedics involves a lot of heavy equipment. Would it lift off? Once it lifts off, that means it defeats the purpose. They said, no, James. I said, even in a tropical country, say, you do have aircon, don't you? I said, but you sure? And I can coach you on that. Yes, of course. So that came to a test. When one day in the nurses' room, I was showing this to a group of nurses. In came this number 3 surgeon. He is, I can mention his name, Fidelis Chu. He passed on in a boat accident in Punggol. I was given an introduction to him before he comes in by the nurses. This thing, you can try to sell to Fidelis Chu. They call it Mr. Chu. And then they explained to me, surgeons like to be called Mr. and not Doctor to separate themselves. It's a British tradition, it seems. Mr. Okay. But out of respect, I call him Doctor. You can. Yeah. And then he said, he's very loud mouth and foul mouth. He used bad words, you know. And you can, and he looked like very shabby, but the guy got brains and he very good. So it's information like this which helps me.
Yeah.
Mentally, I got a good idea of who he is. Foul mouth, but mentally good. That means he likes information. So I say, then he said, operating today, maybe finishing soon. You stay on. In come this guy. There's also a male nurse, operating theatre guy. He also passed on already. His name is Tan Suki. He, after I became friends with him, he also said, hey, James, I like your product because during my spine surgery, Dr. Pang and Dr. Bala, they used this on me and I recovered well. Oh, so I got in a way, endorsement from a surgical nurse who was a patient. And he's very friendly with this Dr. Chu. And then Dr. Chu walked in. Ready? The shirt unbuttoned. And then these other buttons, wrong button, looking very shabby. But don't judge a book by its cover. And then I say this. And then he started off in Cantonese. A favorite curse word, obscene word in Cantonese, you know, starting with the T. Hey, mo gao yong ge. No bloody use. I said, Dr. Chu, what you said? I tried that from another company. Leave off lah. I said, but this don't leave off. And he said, sure. I said, sure. Okay. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, you come into the theater and work with me. Wow.
Wow.
Okay. I've got permission from the matron to observe the operation of other surgeons in a gallery. So the British style, like in old Singapore GH, they call it operating theatre. But the Americans will say operating rooms. Because really it's like a theatre, so there's a gallery. The medical students and guys like me will be there watching. But this time, you say, you come into the operating theatre. Work with me. I said, pray hard that when I go in, demonstrate the product as though I'm an expert.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I've been working on was just plastic bodies, not a real body. And what I've seen was operations done in England. Okay, next morning, prepared, brought my samples along, dress up, sanitize and all that. Act as though I've been expert. And then show them, okay, 2 nurses, hold these 2 sides, hold these 2 corners, and somewhere else hold these two corners. Imagine this one and place it on it. Okay, and surgeon, you draw your hand along this off sides, along your incision sites, and make sure, nurses, no air bubbles, clear off. Part one. And then the cutting of the skin. Okay lah, cutting only the sound of the diathermy machine. First they have the cut, and then when the vessels bleed, they use something called diathermy to seal off the bleeding vessels, and then go on. And once they expose the bone, there comes a heavy metal part, crowbar, literally separating the hip joint, the ball and socket, the ball from the socket, and then comes the electric saw, cutting through the bone. You can smell it right in there. Even up in the gallery, I could smell it, but here I'm just next to it. And then the click. I just praying to myself quietly, don't let this be off, or else I get kicked out, never to come back again. Baptism of fire. And then after about, I don't know how many hours, maybe it took 2 hours, but for me it was an eternity. And then came the stitching part. After the closure, hip replacement in place, the joints in place, artificial joints in place, etc. Come the closing of the wound, and then the stitching. The stitching usually done by a junior doctor. But this guy, he likes to do the stitching himself. It means as nurses say, the guy, hardworking. And stitch, 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 close. Again, look at the wound. It's still there, obviously in place. And this Dr. Chu turned to me and said, when he said like that, tonight I can sleep already. Last night didn't sleep. And that's how I got my opening through him. Then I say, hey, Dr. Chu, can I say that you use this and it work for you? Can. Next time you got good things, you come and show me. Any new things, but don't waste my bloody time, okay? I say, I didn't waste your time. What? Yeah, okay, you good lah. And I think that happened was, after he left, I also left, hired by another company, because with Smith & Nephew, it's just one product, or one range of product, wound care. But another company offered me a job, and that's a British company that's got divisions ranging from petrol, the petrol pumps. Those days, you have BP. The pumps they used was a company called Gilbarco. But Gilbarco are the manufacturers. But this company I'm working with is only the local distributors. But this company I'm working with, they also manufacture water meters. So office upstairs, we do the sales. Downstairs, water meters. Stamping the water meters. And then the internal parts imported from England. So they are also into waterworks. They are the people responsible for maintaining the Johor waterworks. So, the British set up the waterworks, and Singapore sends technicians from this company to go into Johor to do weekly maintenance. And so they're also in process control. They're also in many other things. I was looking after the medical and scientific equipment company division. And it so happened that one of the managers was selling his Mercedes. Those days, Mercedes got no COE. So all within range of a divisional manager. But he's managing the petroleum division. Big sales, big responsibility. But I and he, very good friends. His name is Sam. He's a Hainanese with a Hainanese name, Niam, Sam Niam. He and me got along very well. And then one day he advertised for sale his Mercedes. And Dr. Chu wanted to buy. Come to 11, the name of the street, number 11, etc. And all of a sudden, about 9 o'clock that morning, the receptionist downstairs says, James, there's a Dr. Chu to come and see you. I say, is he Fidelis Chu? I say, yes. He said, the receptionist said, yes. Dr. Chu come and see me. What's it about? So quickly run down. Hey, Dr. Chu, how can I help you? And then he speaks Cantonese. Friends already. Hey, James, somebody in this company want to sell Mercedes. I want to take for a test drive. You sit inside the car with me, okay or not?
He's always inviting you to do interesting things, right? Operation
Yeah.
theater, and then
So I said, well, the guy is Sam Yam, my good friend.
yeah.
And then Teresa, the receptionist, called up for Mr. Yam. Mr. Yam, customer want to come and see your car. Sam came down. And then I say, Sam, this is my friend, Dr. Fidelis Chu, orthopedic surgeon. Yes. And then Dr. Chu said, Mr. Yam, I want to take out your car for a test drive. And James will make sure that the car comes back. Okay lah. And what he did was that he drove the car to me to a workshop, his regular workshop, where an elderly man, he introduced me to this elderly man as my godfather. In Cantonese, Kai Ye. Then he brought the Mercedes and asked, Kai Ye, come and take a test drive. Mechanic, Dr. Chu, myself, let's drive. And this guy very thorough, put the car to a various test and come back, advice to Fidelis, not worth it for the price. Okay lah. So came back. So I said, my job done. I said, Sam, Dr. Chu and you will talk lah. I go and do my work. Okay. So but I know lah, there won't be a sale. But anyway, the friendship is there.
Yeah.
And so through him, I did a lot of things. And even in my new company also, he helped me. And then he passed on.
That's quite an amazing story.
Yeah.
Did you get a better offer at Gil Bako?
Oh, the company itself is not called Gil Bako. It's called Kent. It's named after a guy called George. So it's George Kent. Over there, I've, in fact, a much better offer because I was spotted doing my sales work in hospitals by the guy who is going to be my boss. This company, the Singapore branch, is managed from the Kuala Lumpur branch. They call it, well, actually it's PJ. Although the head office is in UK, so it's an international office, multinational. But I was supposed to come under the control or the supervision of a British engineer, medical engineer, called Eddie, E-D-D-I-E, Eddie Snell, S-N-E-L-L. This guy, he was a biomedical engineer. He even wrote a book called Basics of ECG. I think he did the technical part, but a writer did the writing part.
Yeah.
So it's by Eddie Snell and Schott, S-C-H-O-T-T. And this guy, another good mentor, but too bad he retired, having spent a couple of years, or maybe about 2 years in Singapore. He likes to say, "We Chinese," because he likes to eat Chinese food. We Chinese, the two of us, he said, "We Chinese." He likes to drink, but very alert. So he was a mentor, and with his knowledge of medical electronics, he was also a good instructor for me, learning about how to read ECGs and what an ECG machine is used for, and what a treadmill ECG is used, what does it detect. So lots about the heart I learned from him. So at this company, I was selling a whole range of equipment, hospital sterilizers, anesthesia machine, surgical instruments, kidney machines, even heart valves, the valves for implanting into the heart. And another big thing, which later on became a big thing, but at that time we were struggling, sterilization bags and papers. And that's an interesting story that links my old friend back to you personally. I tell you the story.
Yeah.
So when working under this Eddie Snell, I learned a lot, and also he could see that I persevere a lot. When he met me in the hospital, he saw I was an eager beaver running around. So we started to talk. Then he invited me to the company to meet with the local managing director. I said, okay, but I got no intention to leave actually. I'm quite happy with this present company. But after speaking with the managing director, it so happened that the managing director for Singapore was there, and the MD, managing director from KL, was also there. So Eddie Snell brought me in, and then these three British people were interviewing me. That's it lah. So for me, I didn't express any interest. I'm so happy with this here. Yeah. After the interview, bye-bye, that's it. But the next day, I got a call. James, this Eddie here. I said, Eddie? Eddie Snell. We met yesterday. I said, oh, yeah. Now look, please, come for another meeting. And this time, they make you a concrete offer. So this time, when I went there, okay. But then Eddie also told me, you know where's the Lady Hill Hotel? I said, the one opposite the Shangri-La. Yeah. He said, can you pick me up? And together we go and see David. David is a local boss. And along the way, he talked. They told me, James, do you think you are the best candidate? I said, I didn't apply for anything. You just saw me in the hospital and you invited me. He said, yeah. But they are very impressed. And I just give you an idea of how much you're going to offer you and what kind of products you'll be selling. And if you take on the job, I will be the one you answer to. And then he gave me a copy of his book. So an author of a book with his name there. So I think that as a soft sell already. So by the time I went to see this David, he sort of say, this is what we're going to offer you. So I tried to hide my excitement. More than double what I was getting.
Wow.
But of course, there I was selling one range of products. Over here, there are about 6 or 7. So that's how, and then I worked very well with Eddie. So first, flew to the KL, the PJ office, and then the product managers there showed me the range of products and gave me an idea of what it will be that I'll be selling. I said, wow, quite challenging. But Eddie said, I will be the one guiding you. And Lawrence and Chui, they will also be with you. So we as a team. And I'll make sure that in Singapore, there'll be 1 or 2 medical, 2 technicians that will be responsible for maintaining and servicing the range of equipment that you sell. Okay, so that's how I got into this job.
Can you tell us, James, in those days, for a sales job, what was the kind of pay structure like? Was there a base pay and then commission or bonus?
So in the case of, so it depends. Some companies, they give you a basic pay and they give a higher bonus. Just like, I think about it, just like a cabin crew in the airline. I think a basic pay, but flying and all these things extra. But at that time, what they pay me was almost $2,000. So thinking that this back in 1974, plus a car allowance, another $300, that's about 2,000. For a guy like me, if I remain a teacher, I would have gotten maybe $500. And over here, there's also the prospect of going for overseas training in UK with the manufacturers. Say compared to 1972, I got a friend, Mr. Kwok, who was my colleague in Kwong Avenue School. He left to become a production supervisor in a factory. Those electronics assembly and all that in Singapore was assembling for various companies like Texas Instruments, Electronics, whatever, National Semiconductors. So he left teaching to become a production soup for a princely sum of $600 a month. So there I was. Basically, we are both teachers, what? Basic pay, no commission, but plus car allowance is hitting 2,000. So nothing to complain about lah. Work hard lah.
Gonna ask you a silly question. How important was the pay to you?
It was important because I was just starting a family. My wife, she has her own salary. She's a nurse in a government hospital, but no. Some people always say, James, instead of selling product, you're selling yourself. I say, no. I met her through 2 mutual friends outside. I say, these 2 friends, I know the guy, and then his girlfriend knows my wife. And so we're introduced from outside. It's not that I went into the hospital and sold myself. I said, no. And she was in gynecology and obstetrics. Okay, except for the surgical instruments, which I was managing. I did sell big time to the gynecologist. No. But later on, we have machines to do that. So just starting a family. So if I had remained, I think about 1,000 plus at my old place, and suddenly here a jump, come to almost double. For me, I think it's a gift, a wedding gift in a way. And also, one other thing was I was about to get married, and so after looking at all these terms and conditions and all that, so I just said I have one question. I have planned my wedding on such and such a date, which is about 2 months from now. So may I take my wedding leave, even though I'm so new in the company? Then these two look at each other. They just say, no problem at all. How long will you be away? I say, well, maybe 2 weeks, because my wife got to come back to work. Okay, James, no problem. things are good. That's how I was working there until, too bad, Eddie got to leave. He got married later. I think he was a widow, but he got married to a Chinese lady in KL, his housekeeper. And instead of retiring in England, I think he got somebody living in Australia, in Brisbane, in a place called Bundaberg. And so went there. And after he left, I was supposed to answer to a new guy who is the general sales manager, a new guy based in Singapore, a local who knows nothing about the medical equipment. But when I did my research about him, where he came from and all that, news was no good. He was an empire builder, gathering cronies around him. How do I survive? Now look, those days before internet, there's a very important book called the Straits Times Index of Companies in Singapore and Malaysia. Straits Times Index of Companies in Singapore and Malaysia. A big encyclopedia with names of the major companies inside. Very big. It's like almost 2 volumes or 1.5 volumes of Encyclopedia Britannica. Encyclopedia Britannica got 25 volumes, so very big. And this company I work with, because they got so many divisions, they always take out 2 pages or more. So by flipping through, you look under this, oh, this is a big company. And manager, medical and scientific equipment, James Kwok. So I got called upon by headhunters. Typically, it's something like this. Hello, I'm Lawrence Loh of lohkahseng Limited. Headhunters had mentioned that, are you free to talk? Because those days, no handphone, no, not even pages yet. If boss around, then I say, I'm busy, I'm attending to something now. Can I call you back? Okay, fine. Then give me the name of the company and the phone number. I write it down. Then I say, okay, Dr. Loh, in case my boss around. Okay, I call you back, doctor. Want to play games. And then talk to him when the coast is clear. James, later this week, Wednesday or Thursday, can you come to my office here? We talk and we have lunch, okay? Okay. So I know that I'll be interviewed for a job since it's a headhunter company. But I go prepared, armed with my box of name cards of my competitors and friends in the business. Talk to this, Mr. Loh. And they say, okay, James, from what we can see, you are working with this company. What are the equipment, the agencies in your portfolio? So I tell them, your responsibilities and your pay. I just tell them. And they say, well, we are now working for a company searching for somebody. We cannot disclose the name of the company, but we tell you what it sells. Okay. And if it's somebody, it's something within my range, then I'll say, okay, I can consider. But if it's something which is totally out of my range, then I say, okay, Lawrence, but if you don't mind, can I show you some names of people whom you may wish to contact?
That's why you brought those name cards.
Yeah. Then I put all the name cards. I say, get somebody to photocopy. Then I can give you a brief rundown on each candidate. So that means I'm not wasting his time.
All right.
If I go and say no, another wasted. So I make sure that I don't waste a hunter's time and I remain their friends. Because in case I need a job, they remember me as a guy who don't waste their time.
Was the headhunter impressed or surprised by what you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because then the best compliment is, James, you saved me a lot of time. I said that's what I do for my customers. I don't waste their time. They say, well, after we run through, and I can say maybe order of priority, you should number 1, number 2, number 3. Because some of these people, they actually work for companies set up from overseas, just with a small office. Because in sales, you don't need a small office unless you go into big equipment, demonstration and all that. So they won't get into the buku merah. See this book, the Straits Times Index, red color book, we call the buku merah. In Malay, it's red book of buku merah. Everybody knows buku merah. Merah is red.
Red book.
Red book. Buku merah. So there's a headhunter's Bible. So when they look at this, and they say this is much more than what the buku merah can give them. So each time I got a boss who's trying to get rid of me so that the place can be used by some other good friend of his. Then I call up, not just one company, I got a few, Lawrence or whatever, or Robin or Mike. Mike, I think I'm ready for the change. Oh, okay, let's talk. When you're free. So that's how I survive. That's a survival trick. People who listen to this will know. That's how I survive. You sit in a multinational company, you won't survive long. They hire and fire.
Was it getting difficult right away when this, what's his name, this local sales manager came on board? You feel that the writing was on the wall?
Yeah, so, but first I must observe. Maybe he and me can click. But if he start mentioning that, well, you're only doing so much per year, it's good enough for that. And that's it.